Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Amplify Your Business. Today, I'm talking to Jamie Draves. He's the founder and CEO of Quinta Quinoa, which is a company out in Ontario that has been producing a really high protein, incredible version of quinoa that we are buying off of the shelves in different stores, but maybe not to the same quality that this stuff is. So, Jamie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Lance. Appreciate it.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about the backstory of Quinta, and then we're going to get into really what makes Quinta different in terms of the quinoa that you're selling versus what we maybe are finding in the stores and other brands.
So about 15 years ago now, it's gone by quickly, I went through a health crisis where I was diagnosed with idiopathic pancreatitis. So no known cause, cure, or treatment. After 2 surgeries and losing a third of my pancreas, I was written off by traditional medicine. I was very fatigued, losing weight quickly, very low functioning. So I went out and built my own healthcare team. Wasn't quite ready to leave yet. I had 2 young kids. Built my own healthcare team, formulated a health plan, and a very, very restricted diet. And it was once we had quinoa as the staple that my weight sort of balanced. I stopped losing weight, and that was the beginning of my pathway back to health and the trigger event to drive my passion and pursuit to develop the first ever Ontario quinoa and to develop the highest protein quinoa on the market.
Cool. Yeah, what a story. I mean, to go from potentially life-threatening, right, to finding something that was going to that did end up helping you sustain your life, to keep the weight on and that. And so the magic of quinoa, tell us a little bit about that. Why is this beneficial to you and your health, just in general, the plant itself or the seed?
Yeah, so in general, quinoa, first of all, is one of the rare plant-based proteins that has all the essential amino acids, which is essentially the amino acids, the proteins that we need as humans. They have them all, and most plants don't, and most plant proteins don't. So it's a great vegan replacement for meats, but also too, just as a great source and a different source of protein. Quinoa also typically has good levels of other types of minerals and a pretty high level of fiber, which is great if you have any kind of, if you have diabetes or any insulin functions, those type of things. For me also, what I find is that it's very easily digested. So part of my problem in losing weight, obviously, is I was eating, I get nauseous, fatigue, and ill, and I wasn't getting enough nutrients back from digestion than I was expending during the day, and I wasn't doing a whole lot. So I really wasn't absorbing much, and it was quinoa changed that. And so I was able to get more of a nutrient and be able to process in my body better than other foods. And then that allowed me to stabilize my weight and start to gain it back that way. But overall, it's very hard to match what quinoa can offer as a nutritious food.
Yeah, and so a lot of people that are trying to replace meat proteins, they'll often turn to soy, pea bases, and different things like that. I don't often hear of quinoa being on the top of that list of protein replacements. Why is that? Why is it that if this has more advantages, we don't hear about that, or that's not the first choice?
Well, I think the markets have really taken over in having, it started off with rice protein. Then it moved into pea protein, and then we've got some other bean proteins that are being used right now. A lot of them have been grown in large quantities for many years out west. So I think it's a function of what is there as a crop. They are good alternatives as well. And so they form a lot of the isolates, which are heavily processed down into an isolate of protein that all could tend to be the same thing. And so it makes it inexpensive. And makes it very accessible for companies. And so that's probably the biggest reason of why we haven't seen as much quinoa in things as an ingredient. But on their own, it offers you a much a whole food, for one, right? It's not been processed down into some kind of isolate with it. And what we found, so we took a look at it as an isolate, and it's close but not quite as high of protein as some of the isolates that are used out there. But on the other hand, those ones are void of other minerals and other benefits.
Mm.
Whereas if you take quinoa and you look at it that way, your protein might be a little bit less as far as an overall percentage. The quality of the protein is probably better. I know with our quinoa, uniquely, it's equivalent to eggs, which is the gold standard for amino acid profiles. And that's not the same for every quinoa, but ours is that. So there is a quality advantage there. But also then you'll get your other minerals. When we were naturally developing this quinoa, we were going after protein, and serendipitously, we got this great bump in all these minerals where our iron is more than liver, our calcium is more than cow's milk, 50% of magnesium, the fibers, like 24% of your daily fibers. So it gives you all these other extra benefits with it. And so we really believe as a whole food, this is arguably the top non-GMO, non-allergen whole food you can eat.
Yeah, it sounds like a superfood, really, like in the category of all the superfoods that we hear so much about. This one is right there with them. Now, you said that you developed this, and I know that you have the claim that this is the highest protein quinoa in the marketplace. So tell me a little bit about that development process. You started eating quinoa in your diet. It saved you, and then what happened? Like you decided to do some plant breeding, or how did you end up with this product that is so much more superior than other quinoa in the marketplace?
So we realized that it wasn't any in Ontario. And again, in looking at it from my perspective, a couple elements. Number one, I was still not 100%. And so through what I had gone through the health crisis and through my pathway back to health and continue till today, I did want to find a purpose to it, right? I did want to find there was a reason for my life changing so dramatically after leading a very healthy life. And then idiopathic pancreatitis just all of a sudden comes up, which means no known cause, cure, or treatment. So that was part of it. And so I went to the Ministry of Agriculture, went to a couple of other groups and said, hey, how do we just do this in Ontario? And so it started there. There was some cooperation early on, and then other priorities came up for them. And so we just continued, and we have over 300 varieties, and we were breeding them naturally. Some of the things we did differently than what's normal is we didn't look for yield first. We looked for the plants that were highest in nutrient protein.
Yeah.
And then we developed that crop over many years. It's been 11 years now, but we were able to get to market starting slowly in, I think, 2017. And
Yeah.
we've just been building since then.
And so then you contract growers then to grow your variety of quinoa then across Western Canada and into Ontario then as well?
We've grown in 5 provinces. So Quebec, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And we have done a little bit in Manitoba as well. And we are now just doing some in the US.
That's quite the story, right? It's a really Canadian bred and developed story, and now you're marketing it across Canada in elsewhere as well into the United States.
Yeah, we're starting in the US. We've done a little bit there. During COVID was certainly difficult to do.
Yeah.
And then we're looking into Europe as well. Quinoa's grown around the world right now. Being local is certainly a big advantage for us here across Canada. We're local to 5 provinces. Not many products, not many natural products can say that. And so that's beneficial to us and beneficial to consumers looking to buy local, which there are many doing that. And so now we're trying to expand based on the nutritional profile. And so our marketing elements are different, and then pricing, obviously being a smaller company than the large companies of South America, which is the vast majority of quinoa, creates some challenges in a commodity market, being a domestic local type of company. But we're up to the challenge, and every week there's a new challenge that comes up in the food industry. It's an extremely challenging industry, but one that is incredibly gratifying because of the difficulty and the degree of difficulty to have success.
Yeah. And so a lot of people who've maybe had quinoa before, they purchased at the local store and at Costco or whatever the case might be, and they didn't really like it because maybe it was a little bitter almost tasting. You hear that sometimes. What would you say to them about yours and how that compares from a taste profile?
So there's different varieties that are being used. So there are some varieties that have a little less saponin in them, which is what gives it a bitter taste. And so, You can look for it that way. Ours does. And in North America, it's very hard to do quinoa without the bitter taste. The saponin on it is actually a natural pesticide herbicide. That's right, a pesticide fungicide. And so we take that off, but sometimes that can leave a little bit of bitterness. A simple rinse with ours and it's gone. With some other varieties, especially there's one in Canada right now that when we meet a lot of people, they have distinctly tried that one. We know that they've tried it because they say, I hate quinoa. And you're like, let me guess, you bought it here. And they go, yep. That one is challenging and hurts us a little bit as far as expanding the quinoa. But also the other secret sauce that I love to use is to, rinse it before and then cook it up and add a little bit of maple syrup is my sort of secret sauce for it.
Yeah, very Canadian again. So it's great.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're trying to work with some global relief corps. So we work with food banks, food for kids programs, all that stuff to give back. Because, when you have a product like this, that's so fantastic. I think there's a responsibility to make sure the people that need it the most can get it.
Yeah. So tell me, like for a company like yours, I mean, you're really fully integrated, right? From the plant breeding to the production of this, contracting growers to grow it and then processing it and, packaging it and so on. It's just a very integrated system that you have there. What are some of the challenges that you've had over the 13 years, I think you said, that you've been doing this then?
Many.
Yeah.
I think for one, we took on the whole value chain. So that means we take the risk on in all those elements of it, right? So you've got the grower has to get this. So first of all, you have to produce the seed. You have to have that ready that can grow. The grower will grow it. The producer will grow it. And then they sell it back to us. So then we've got to be able to find a way to try to pay them. And then from that point, we've got to process it. So clean it, process it. Then we have to co-pack it into packaging and then do the sales marketing and then sell it into a chain or a distributor who then sells it down the line. So we've got delays all through that process.
Yeah. And
so that makes it really challenging to have those, the cash flow to be able to pay those farmers in good time that way. And, when you do your marketing and your sales plans, you're investing a lot, especially up front in food industry to get awareness. And our loyalty is phenomenal. I have experience in pharma and retail health and other big industries and Fortune 500 companies. And the loyalty level we have is exceptional. It's the awareness that's a huge challenge. And that comes with time and costs and all these dynamics. Even when you have such a unique, wonderful product that is gold standard, it still takes all of that, all those resources to do that. So those are all the challenges. And in the food industry, you could wait 3 years before they decide to make any decisions in your category to change a product or to add yours. So a lot of patience, a lot of follow-up, a lot of turnstile type of interactions with the whole market. And so for us, our big motto is you find a way. You just find a way. Whatever way you need to do, you find a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, perseverance and is just a huge trait that you must carry across everything in your life, because for somebody to take on the challenge also of building your own health team to get you through that crisis that you were facing there from a health perspective is also about, rooted in perseverance. So yeah, good on you for continuing on and fighting through all those challenges that come with that full vertical integration. And I imagine one of the challenges that you must have too is going to be convincing people who've maybe had a bad experience with quinoa in the past, right? Had some brand that maybe was not nearly as good as yours and had that bitterness and it kind of turned them off. So to get them to come back a second time is also going to be a challenge then, and explain to them that no, ours is different and this is how ours is going to actually, you're going to enjoy it. And it's going to be the superfood that you're going to be consuming or your family's going to be consuming that's going to actually help them.
Yeah.
So
butter and maple syrup, and then try it hot like that and with some salt.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. So maybe that'll help.
And
just to go back quickly, just to add on that the perseverance part, I definitely have to thank my family. We have I had a reunion recently, And there was a lot of the mention, and a lot of the stories were around the idea that, you find a way to get through things, and you have a responsibility to your community. And those are two things that I definitely carry into the culture of this company as a holocracy.
Yeah, yeah, that's really cool. Now, in terms of the awareness piece, like you said, that's one of your biggest challenges right now. Is that what you think is going to continue to be one of your greatest challenges, or is there something else on the horizon to take your business from where it is today to that next level? When you start looking into the future, what challenges are you anticipating you're going to face, and then how do you intend to overcome those then?
Yeah, it's a great question, especially during these times.
Yeah.
There's so much tumult that it's hard to gauge where things are going to go. I think in the short term, the pricing of other crops has risen so much that it's a little more challenging to build up the supply. Now, fortunately, we have a built up supply, so that's not an issue. We've done well to build that up to survive this type of somewhat crisis in the industry. With rising prices, we do see competitors rising their price, and that probably will never come down given their environments with it. Awareness is still one of our biggest challenges. I think the other part is that right now in Canada, we're in about 700 stores across Canada, and we have to find a way to deliver to each one of those stores. So we don't go through a warehouse internally. We go through all the local programs. And so that's costly for us. And so we need to find a better way of, and sometimes it's just going to be patience of making sure that we are on top of and being able to well communicate how differentiated our product is, how much you can SKU rationalize with our product, and how much you can really satisfy the local market, which has been incredible for us, the consumers and supporters of us in that realm, to have our product accessible for everyone. And that's a tremendous challenge in this environment. I think coming out of COVID, where that's opening up a bit more. The last 2 years have been difficult. But I'd say the access and awareness are still our two greatest problems in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and for those who don't understand the food business, they might be scratching their head going, well, why don't you just sell it through the warehouse, essentially, the distributors and into the stores outside of the local program? I know there's a very important reason for that. Would you mind sharing that with everybody who don't understand the food industry that well?
Yeah, so it's all a little bit different, but I think the commonalities is that typically a lot of the stores will have a planogram. So they'll lay out where all their products are, and every store follows it to a T or somewhat follows it, that type of dynamic. And if you're on planogram, then typically you ship into that company's warehouse, and then those stores will order it and it gets to them. There's obviously battles over that space in stores. And especially if existing products in your category are there already. So then they typically will have to displace someone else to put you in. So now it's not just, hey, here's my product, and you put it on shelf, and if people see it, they'll buy it, because they do. That's not really the argument that gets you the success. You have to find other ways of convincing them to bring it on board for them. And the other thing they do is, so to be able to change the planogram of, let's say, quinoa, and quinoa is typically in the rice category, that may only happen every 3 or 4 years. It's on a cycle. And on top of that, the category manager who makes that decision may change every 6 months, and which is done on purpose so that there's not corruption or not favoritism. So you're constantly having to change your relationships. You're constantly having to redo here. We're in one big chain now. We said, yes, you're in the local program. You're great. You're in, you're good. And then all of a sudden it was, oh, no, sorry, new category manager. And they're like, oh, I don't know quinoa. So you start all over again. So those are the big challenges. And so what we've been able to do is, because we are local to so many provinces, we get in through the local programs. We're not even in a consistent place. We're just somewhere in the store. And, our local consumers find it, and they do well. And we do a lot of social media to try to gain that awareness so that they know where to get it.
Yeah, and another aspect too of being in that planogram and being listed that way is cost too. There's an added layer of cost that comes with that a lot of people don't understand.
Yeah, which could be in the tens to up to $100,000 a product.
Yeah, just
that
the
the
listing
team get.
fees, the promotional fees, all these different things that you have to contribute in order to get on that shelf in that regular spot.
Yeah, and it just in the food business, I find even working through the full value chain and seeing it all, the next level stuff is always at a cost, a big cost, and always or typically an investment cost, meaning that,
Mm.
okay, we're going to move up a level, we're going to have this kind of success. So therefore, the return is right there. Well, no, a lot of the time it's, you have to invest all of this and then burn out your time or use that time to get to that next level as that ROI. And so that's challenging.
Yeah. So when you're faced with those kinds of challenges, does the online option then become more and more palatable, or it comes with its own challenges? And by online, I'm grouping, what you might have in terms of if you wanted your own store on your website, as well as the Amazons of the world. So walk us through that decision, and how do you balance going harder and further into the retail distribution versus looking at the
Online.
online sales?
So from our experience, the cost of shipping is the complete determinant of that. So if you have anything heavy like a quinoa, so if you're dealing in supplements, they're light, they're small, high margins, high cost, that's a different story. But if you're dealing with food like a quinoa that has a weight to it and a fairly big size, then the cost of shipping becomes really limiting, extremely limiting. And so ourselves, we don't sell it straight out to ship it out because it just ends up being too costly for consumers compared to other quinoa. So what we've typically done is we've used the model like a lot of people have with Amazon. The challenge with Amazon is, and I'll speak for ourselves only because I can't speak for other products, is that the cost of the fees from Amazon are as much as our product costs.
Mm-hmm.
So very early in the process, we realized that Amazon is, even though it's a revenue generating, meaning that, we'll see the sale come through at whatever the price we are charging it as. But once you subtract all the fees and that they put on top of it, you're not making any profit. So, you're selling it for, let's say it's $9.99, you're getting that $9.99 put down as a revenue, but it's cost you $10 to have it there and get it shipped to that consumer.
Yeah.
So we have always, just so that we frame it correctly and use it properly, is to us, Amazon is a marketing expense. Very little expense, but it's a marketing expense, and a revenue generator, but it's not really a profit maker for us.
So the strategy there is to get it easily accessible for people so they can try it, they can order some, and then kind of get hooked. And then when they're in the grocery store and they see it there, that's when they'll buy it out of convenience. And that's where you're going to make some profit then.
That's the ideal. And it's, you have to have that online presence enough to, we keep talking about watershed moments, that we're looking for the watershed moment by which people will recognize our quinoa over other quinoa and know it and know the differences. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet. We're quite a ways away from it, but we inch closer and closer. And that's when we'll see the benefit of having something like an Amazon that just continues to pop up. There was an old rule when I was working in pharma that in the pharma industry, that essentially it took 27 hits, now we call them impressions, before someone actually retained that message and understood it.
Yeah.
Different now, but I think the concept is there that it's got to be repetitive before someone appreciates the value of it. Let's just say that.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you for sharing your story, Jamie. I really appreciate it. I think a lot of people who are in the food business and those who aren't in the food business are both going to benefit from what you've shared with us and have a better understanding. And for those who are interested in a healthy alternative to some of the other things that they're putting on their plates, this truly is a superfood and it does taste incredible. So Jamie sent me a package of it, had it. It's incredible, like he said, with a little bit of butter and a little bit of maple syrup or honey or something like that too. It was really, really great. But to know that you're putting something that's good into your body, that has all those amino acids and everything else in it that is going to really benefit your health, as opposed to just some sort of cheap filler, is really important in today's world, in particular when we have this health crisis that seems to be passing through society, and it's because of food choices. So what
Yeah.
you put in your body matters, and this is something that is going to be helpful for sure.
And
So
I can tell when I didn't eat it yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's from the iron and the protein with it.
Yeah, it's incredible, and the iron too, in particular. I my partner, she has iron deficiencies at times, and so having something like this in the diet, when we don't eat a lot of red meat, especially with the cost of red meat now,
Yes.
so when we're more heavy on the fish and the chicken and so on, we don't have as much of that iron coming in, and so a product like this really does help out in that regard too.
Well, thank you so much, Lance, for the opportunity to chat and get to know you a little bit better. And I love the fact that you are so interested in people's stories. And it's I find life is about the human experience, and the human experience is about the communities around you, whether that be your family, your friends, higher levels of towns, neighborhoods, whatever that may be. And stories make a great part of that. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity.
Love the storytelling for sure. And so, for those of you who are interested in accessing this at the retail, it would be great for you guys to try it just on Amazon if you needed to, but we'd prefer that you walk down to the store and picked it up. I'm in Edmonton right now, and so there's two places in Edmonton that I've found it at, and that's the Loblaw City Market downtown, and then there's also, I believe it's a Sobeys that's down on Strathcona. No, Save on Foods, I mean, down in Strathcona, that has it as well. Can you tell us what other store chains we'd maybe be able to find it in other cities?
Calgary Co-op is another one that has quite a bit out west. You mentioned there's several Loblaws that have it in Alberta that are doing extremely well with it. And so thank you to everybody for the support of the local quinoa there. We grow it in Lethbridge and a couple other places in Alberta. I'm trying to think out west, who else we have out there. I
Well,
think that's the majority.
yeah, Freshco is one now that we have a lot of stores in West Canada, and Save-Ons, and I know that
Yeah.
you're in both
There's a
of
few
those.
save-ons. We're hoping to get more. So go to your save-ons and ask for it.
Yeah,
And I know in the east out here, we're in the Sobeys, we're in the Metro, we're in the IGA, we're in the Foodlands, we're in the Food Basics. A lot of those stores that are here as well. So, and we'd love to direct you. Go on our website. We have over 100 recipes, and we list all our retail locations to help you find our product.
awesome. Okay, thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate it. So everybody go out and chase down some quinoa because you're really going to enjoy it. And if you enjoyed this episode, head over to amplifyyourbusiness.ca. That's where you're going to find an archive of all of our past episodes. And if you happen to be an entrepreneur with a great story, then definitely fill out the form that's on that page, and you could be featured as a future guest as well. Until the next episode, I hope everybody has a prosperous day.